All right, so 812. And this is the one that we kept talking about it being difficult and the IQR question. So when you are comparing statistics of things, the amount of interquartile ranges, or you will start to call them standard deviations. Anyone ever heard of the standard deviation? So when you're a really young kid, they keep track of your height and weight and things like that and compare you to other kids, check that you're healthy and whatever. And if you're so many standard deviations away from the middle, it either means you're really tall or really short, right? And different things like that. So if we're talking about playing darts, you can hold this stack and lay them out. Or you could just listen right now and then just think back to the problems that we did. So this was those histograms, right, that we turned into box plots. This is what our parallel box plot should look like. And then if we compare their medians, it's about one interquartile range that the left hand is better than the right hand. That part D is not going to make or break your homework, being in chat. I don't really care about that because that is honestly a high school level question. But when you end up hearing the words standard deviation, that's what it's talking about. Things like that, how deviated from the standard being the middle, right? Yeah. So standard deviation is how far. Deviation is how far away. And by standard, they're not necessarily average, because that's an actual math word. But yeah, it gets deep. 24, 23.4, 40%, 15%. Questions from here, especially the Mrs. Chen one. We started that one together. That's our multiple equations type problem. I'm trying to check what requests had been made. It was from 812, question 23. Oh yeah, that's the same one we just talked about. Eva, which one had we said we needed to? 39. It's on the next one, right? All right, so there's those answers, and they're recorded if you want to go check those later. 821. And guys, it's okay if you didn't get these right, but take a moment to see what they said about those samples and how representative or not they are. If you think about Worthington and the different neighborhoods, you probably can think about there's a different vibe in the different neighborhoods. You go up in the hills, and I feel like I can't touch anything because it's all expensive. The hills just feels like the nicer part of Worthington, right, where things are a bit more pricey. And that most towns kind of have that of where did people build their bigger houses, and they're where do you see the swimming pools, and there's a golf course, as opposed to where I live, it's just a regular neighborhood. There's some apartments on both ends, but every neighborhood has its own characteristics, so it's not very representative to just focus on a single neighborhood. I forget honestly what some of the other ones were saying. Randomly pick one house from each block. That's a bit better. It's fairly good. Survey each person at iJump Pancake. Anyone chuckle at that when they saw the iJump Pancake? Or what are they spoofing on?
IHOP.
Yeah. Ask people who are leaving the twice yearly town hall meeting. I mean, it depends, right? That, again, is one of those situations of well, who goes? I don't know if you've ever been to a school board meeting, but, it'd be, the same sort of thing, right? Well, who's there? Probably only people that care enough to show up. Visit every 10th person on the county's voter registration. Yeah, that feels very systematically random. It's random because you're not picking the people. I'm not picking, I'm going to go visit Lydia. But if Lydia's the 10th person, I go visit Lydia. So it's going to give you a lot of different people and different opinions because it's working alphabetically. Just go by tens and talk with all those people. It's probably about the best that we can get from what they gave us, from the options they gave us. Percent change is not going away. So if you got that problem wrong, you probably still need to review how to do that, which I've gone over more times than I really wish I had. If you are copying answers right now, please stop. That doesn't help you. And we have a test next week, so you want to make sure that you know how to do these things. It's quarter 3 though. Don't fret about it. You won't get it back till after break, probably. Area, perimeter. Area, perimeter. Please double check that you know how to do area. Those shapes could be broken up a lot of different ways. So when I broke up those shapes, so guys, who used the trapezoid area formula? It's difficult, right? So, and this, I'm kicking myself. I made a trapezoid out of wood that I will bring next week to show you guys, like, what happens. But trapezoid area, for anyone who really cares, and I'm going to leave it up here, and it's on a couple of my posters. Like, if you go find my area posters. That's a bad trapezoid. Do you remember what that formula is, Aaron? Like, it's hard to memorize because it's a lot, but I'll be impressed if you remember it. So hold on. So we have to call things base 1 and base 2. So Aaron's saying we do base 1 plus base 2. Yeah, I do this divided by 2, and then I do times height, but it doesn't make a difference. The reason that's happening is if I cut this shape apart, and move it, it would fit in right here and make a rectangle. But base 1 would get longer, base 2 would get shorter. So why we do this is we're averaging the bases together. We're cutting it and making it a rectangle. That's why we do that. And then rectangle is base times height. So this is legitimately just averaging your bases together. Or treat it like rectangles and triangles. Right? Like that's your other option. Treat it like rectangles and triangles. Physically cut the shape apart. Deal with it differently. You're going to need some work written down on that problem because I know it's too difficult to just solve. So if somehow you just end up with just an answer on your paper, we're probably going to have a conversation about that. And if you want to check it, because we gave it out to you this week, 831, and if not, the answers will be in the video. So, like we talked about making a combination histogram box plot. And it's okay if you haven't done this yet, but that's what your combination histogram box plot is gonna look like. Eva. Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's because I'm looking at the key and not the actual paper. All right, so 839. If it loads, there we go. Don't worry about whose homework this is. It's somebody from the other class because I just grabbed it quickly because it was available. Absolute value. Right? And this is also, I wanted to go over it in class. I want to see what homework help tells us to do. Because I want to know if you go to homework help, is it helpful? So, if I get to 839. So, since it says find a list of 5 safe speeds, do I have to actually solve this? Do I have to like algebra on both sides? No. I could just guess and check. So I need to be within or less than 10. Right? When I do this, absolute value does what? Yeah, and what it does, you're absolutely right. What it does makes things positive, right? So, if I plug in 35 minus 10 is 25. Absolute value, still 25. Am I left? Darn it. So 10 wouldn't work. Because is that less than, if I plug in 10 for S, if I plug in 10 for S, it doesn't work. So, give me something that could work. Alan? 25. If I plug in 25 for S, 35 minus 25 is 10, absolute value of 10. Am I less than or equal to 10? Yes. Vivian? 24. 35 minus 24 gives me 11. I don't think 24 works. What about 26? So if we try 26, that'll give me like 9. So you don't actually have to solve this. Like, you don't have to do the on both sides stuff. But if you wanted to, you can look up how to solve absolute value equations. I don't want to teach it to you right now because it's a little more complicated than what I want to throw at you on a Friday. It involves splitting the equation into 2 different equations, one looking at the positive and one looking at the negative, and then you solve both of them. And then it gives you a range. We're not going to do it because you don't have to yet. I think a lot of us tried to do on both sides here. We don't quite know how because we haven't done that. Do what it's asking you, right? Find a list of 5 safe speeds. And then I think we found, like when it talks about to show the entire set, I think we found that 25 is our one boundary. Because we tested 24 and 24 didn't work. 25 did though. So 25 up to, anyone find that other boundary? Lydia?
45.
If I plug in 45 here, 35 minus 45 is negative 10, but absolute value is positive 10 then. So there's the whole, you can do 25 up to 45, any numbers in between there, because the absolute value, it works out. Thank you. I have forgotten 5 times. Other questions that were too difficult? Or you just want to talk about just fun? Okay. Chapter 7, Mastery Revisions. Please give them to me. I did not grade last night, but I am today. It's what I'm doing after school when you all go home. I know, being a teacher. Don't worry, we have a Christmas party tonight, so I'll get to have some fun today. But my friends do a really cool thing with their Christmas party where, we bring gifts, but they have a registry of, kids in need and things that the kids, can be donated to those kids. So it's like an adopt a family thing. Shout out to the Hendersons. Good work, guys. So we bought a bunch of art supplies. Other questions? I want to awkwardly stare at you until somebody asks a question, or I guess I'll turn on music. Eva?
Okay, so do you want me to just staple the graph paper of the chapter 7 mastery?
On front is easiest. I don't really care, but yeah, it needs to be stapled. It's got to be attached. On front is easiest for me. Doesn't mean that's where it has to go. It's just easiest. All right, so anyone playing along at home, I'm going to stop the recording unless anyone asks any other questions. There's no sense in just, a recording of a quiet room.